You walk into a dark room and flip a switch. Before you have finished the movement, the light is on. That happened in a fraction of a second, and something crossed the room to make it happen. Something that moved fast enough to be invisible, fast enough to beat the signal from your brain to your hand. What was it, and how did it travel so fast? The answer most people carry is wrong. Not slightly wrong, not missing a detail or two, but wrong in a way that, once corrected, makes electricity feel completely different from the thing you thought you understood. The truth starts with what is actually inside the wire before you touch the switch, and ends with why the light responds before anything has had time to travel anywhere. Let's get into it right here on Small Things. A wire full of waiting electrons. The first thing to understand is that the wire is not empty before you flip the switch. Every copper wire is packed with electrons already inside the metal, already there before any current flows. Copper is a particularly good conductor because each atom holds one outer electron loosely, free to wander. A single cubic centimeter of copper wire contains enough of these free electrons to be almost beyond imagining. Before you touch the switch, those electrons are moving constantly but going nowhere, bouncing between atoms in all directions with no net movement. The battery's job is to give them a reason to drift in one direction, not by adding new electrons, but by creating the conditions that organize the ones already there. How we got the direction wrong. For most of the history of electricity, nobody knew what was actually moving inside a wire. The best minds available were working by analogy, and the most famous mistake in the field came from one of its earliest thinkers. Benjamin Franklin, experimenting with static electricity in the 1740s, proposed that electricity was an invisible fluid that flowed from regions of excess to regions of deficiency. He decided, somewhat arbitrarily, that the excess end was positive and the deficiency end was negative. By his logic, electricity flowed from positive to negative. Schools taught this for over a century, and many still refer to this as conventional current. The direction Franklin chose turned out to be exactly backwards. When Joseph Thomson experimented with cathode ray tubes in the late 1800s, he discovered that the rays deflected toward a positively charged plate, meaning they were being attracted by the opposite charge. The moving particles were negatively charged, and they moved from the negative end to the positive. These were electrons, and they flowed in the direction Franklin had labeled as wrong. The confusion persisted because by then, conventional current was embedded in all the equations and circuit diagrams that electrical engineers had been using for decades. Rather than rewrite everything, the convention stuck, positive to negative in diagrams, even though the electrons move the other way. Both conventions are in use today, which is one reason electricity feels unnecessarily confusing. What Thomson's discovery actually revealed was something more important than direction. There is a real physical thing moving inside a conductor. It has a charge, a mass, and a behavior that can be studied and predicted. For a century before Thomson, electrical engineers had built working circuits, generators, and motors using Franklin's wrong direction. The mathematics still worked because changing the sign of both the charge and the direction of motion produces the same observable result. A system with positive charges moving one way is mathematically identical to negative charges moving the other, and most of what electrical engineers needed to know held true either way. But Thomson's discovery opened something else. If electrons were real particles with measurable properties, then what happened inside a wire could be answered physically, not just mathematically. The model of electrons drifting in response to an electric field began to reshape how physicists understood conduction, resistance, and energy transfer, and that understanding eventually made semiconductors and transistors possible. The field arrives. First, the part that resolves the paradox is not the electrons at all, it is what happens between them. When you flip the switch, the battery creates a difference in electrical pressure across the circuit. That pressure difference sends an electric field through the wire. The field is not made of electrons, it is the invisible influence that travels through the space between and around the electrons, spreading outward at a speed approaching the speed of light. Think of a long line of people standing shoulder to shoulder. If you nudge the person at one end, they nudge the next, and that nudge travels all the way down the line almost instantly. No individual person moved very far, but the influence reached the other end immediately. In a wire, the electrons are the people. The field is the nudge. The moment the switch closes, the field establishes itself through the entire length of the circuit simultaneously, and every electron in the wire begins to drift in the same direction at the same moment. The bulb does not wait for an electron to travel from the battery. It starts receiving energy the moment the field arrives, and the field arrives at the speed of light. The electrons are carrying the energy, but not by racing to the bulb. They carry it the way water in a hose carries it. Turn on a tap at one end, and the pressure appears almost immediately at the other end, even though the same water molecules have not traveled the full length of the pipe. The water was already filling the hose. Only the pressure needed to travel. In the wire, the electrons were already there. Only the field needed to arrive. The energy is transmitted through the field. The electrons are the medium it travels through. As those electrons push through the thin wire inside the bulb's filament, they collide repeatedly with the atoms there, transferring their energy as heat. The filament becomes hotter and hotter until it glows. The light you see is the result of countless electron-atom collisions converting electrical energy into photons every time the circuit is live. The electrons were already there. Here is something about electricity that almost nobody knows, even people who use it constantly. The energy does not travel inside the wire. Most people picture a cable as a pipe. The electricity flows through the copper the way water flows through a hose from one end to the other inside the material. That picture is wrong. The energy in an electrical circuit does not travel along the inside of the conductor. It travels in the invisible fields that exist in the space surrounding the wire. When a circuit is carrying current, the electric field and the magnetic field around the wire interact in a way that moves energy through the empty space between the wire and the device it is powering. The copper guides and shapes that field, keeping the energy directed toward where it needs to go. But the copper is not carrying the energy itself. It is more like a track that keeps a field pointed in the right direction than a pipe that transports a substance through its interior. This is why the amount of energy delivered does not depend on how much copper is in the wire. The copper guides the field. The field carries the energy. The cable running from your wall socket to your phone is not full of electricity. It is surrounded by it. The copper inside is the guide. The energy itself travels in the fields the circuit creates around the wire. Why the medium matters. The reason this distinction matters practically is that everything about how a circuit is designed depends on understanding the relationship between the field and the medium. The wire's thickness determines how many electrons are available to move at once. A thin wire has fewer free electrons per cross-section, which means higher resistance, which means less current can flow for a given voltage. This is why power cables carrying large amounts of current are thick. Not because thick wire is inherently stronger, but because it provides more conducting medium for the field to work with. The same principle governs the design of every electrical component in every device you own. The thin filament in a traditional light bulb was designed to have high resistance precisely so that electrons would collide frequently and generate heat and light. A wire connecting your phone charger to the socket is designed to have low resistance so that it transfers energy to your phone without wasting it as heat. In the processors inside computers, signals travel as fields through copper traces only a few nanometers wide. The electrons barely move, but the fields travel fast enough to execute billions of operations per second. In high-voltage power lines crossing continents, the field carries energy across thousands of kilometers, and the cables are engineered to minimize how much is lost to resistance along the way. Every circuit, from a single bulb to a national power grid, is a system designed to manage the relationship between field and medium, energy and resistance, pressure and flow. A chain reaction you cannot see. Consider the light switch on the wall again and everything it conceals. The visible part is simple: a lever, a click, a lamp. The invisible part is a field establishing itself through copper, an organized drift of particles that were never going anywhere before you asked them to, and the conversion of that drift into light through countless collisions in a filament too thin to see clearly. Electricity is not a substance being delivered, it is a system, and the system responds to your gesture before your hand has finished moving. The next time you flip a switch, you are not simply completing a circuit. You are triggering something that physics took 2 centuries to fully understand in the fraction of a second before the light comes on. If this changed the way you think about the next switch you flip, let us know in the comments what you want us to explore next. We might make it our next episode. Thanks for watching. History often hides in the smallest details.